My life, once filled with the weight of the crown, now bears the burden of unimaginable sorrow. The roar of revolution, the whispers of betrayal, the cries of my people, all echo in my ears. My heart aches for Russia, my family, my lost hope. This is my fate, my tragedy, a story written in blood and etched in stone.
The life of Tsar Nicholas II. Tsar Nicholas II was the last emperor of Russia, ruling from 1894 until his abdication in 1917. He was born on May 18, 1868, in Pushkin, Russia, as the eldest son of Tsar Alexander III and Empress Maria Feodorovna. Nicholas was the grandson of Tsar Alexander II, who was assassinated in 1881, and the great-grandson of Tsar Nicholas I. He was given the name Nikolai Aleksandrovich Romanov, but he is commonly known as Tsar Nicholas II. As a child, Nicholas was a shy and introverted boy who lacked the charisma and leadership skills his father had. He received his education from private tutors with an emphasis on military training. He also traveled extensively with his family, which exposed him to different cultures and political systems. In 1889, at the age of 21, Nicholas was appointed as the heir to the throne after his father's death. On November 26, 1894, Nicholas ascended to the throne. He was crowned in the traditional ceremony at the age of 26, making him the youngest ruler of Russia at the time. Nicholas was not prepared for the responsibilities of being a ruler, and he often turned to his wife Alexandra for advice. She was a German princess and the granddaughter of Queen Victoria of England. Their marriage was a love match, and they had 5 children together, 4 daughters and a son. Nicholas inherited a vast and diverse country, spanning over 8 million square miles, with a population of over 130 million people. The Russian Empire was an absolute monarchy, and Nicholas had complete control over the government and the people. He believed in the divine right of kings and saw himself as the father of his people, responsible for their welfare and well-being. Nicholas was determined to continue the autocratic rule of his predecessors. He was conservative and resisted any attempts at reform or modernization. He held on to the belief that the Russian autocracy was the best form of government for his people, despite growing discontent and calls for change. One of the major challenges Nicholas faced during his reign was the Russian-Japanese War of 1904-1905. The war broke out over territorial disputes in Manchuria and Korea. The Russian army suffered a series of humiliating defeats, which led to a revolution in 1905. In response to the unrest, Nicholas was forced to make concessions, including the establishment of the State Duma, the first parliament in Russia. However, the Duma had limited power and was dissolved by Nicholas whenever it tried to challenge his authority. This only further fueled the growing discontent and resentment towards the Tsar and his government. Nicholas's reign was also marked by economic struggles and a widening gap between the rich and poor. The majority of the population lived in poverty, while the royal family and the nobility enjoyed a life of luxury. The industrialization of Russia had led to the growth of the middle class, who demanded more political rights and representation. However, Nicholas remained uncompromising and refused to give up any of his power. The start of World War I in 1914 brought further challenges for Nicholas and his government. The Russian army suffered heavy losses and the country's resources were drained. The war also led to food shortages and inflation, which resulted in widespread discontent and protests. Nicholas made the decision to take control of the army himself, leaving his wife Alexandra in charge of the government. This decision proved to be a fatal mistake. Alexandra was heavily influenced by the mystic Grigory Rasputin, who claimed to have healing powers and a direct connection to God. She often consulted with him and made decisions based on his advice. Rasputin's influence in the government and his scandalous behavior, combined with the ongoing war and economic struggles, further eroded the Tsar's already weak position. In February 1917, a series of strikes and protests in St. Petersburg, later renamed Petrograd, forced Nicholas to abdicate the throne. He was forced to step down not only by the people, but also by his own generals and advisors who feared the collapse of the empire. Nicholas and his family were placed under house arrest and were later moved to Tobolsk, Siberia. In July 1918, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, executed the royal family, including Nicholas, Alexandra, and their 5 children. The murder of the Romanovs marked the end of the Russian monarchy and the beginning of the Soviet Union. Tsar Nicholas's reign was marked by a series of failures and a resistance to change. He was unprepared and ill-suited for the role of a ruler, and his decisions often had disastrous consequences. His belief in the absolute power of the Tsar and his unwillingness to listen to the people ultimately led to his downfall. Despite his shortcomings, Nicholas was a devoted husband and father who deeply cared for his family and country. He will always be remembered as the last Tsar of Russia, and his legacy continues to fascinate and intrigue people to this day.